Remember, I think it was yesterday, we talked about the two men in North Carolina, Henry Lee McCollum and Leon Brown, who were convicted 30 years ago of rape and murder. Antonin Scalia had once used McCollum as an example of why the death penalty should be applied, and applied with vigor and with little delay. And of course, it turns out that both of them were innocent, not guilty. They were innocent. They didn't commit the murder. They had nothing to do with it. And DNA, after all these years, finally exonerated them and identified the person who was already in prison who had committed these crimes 30 years ago. Okay, that's kind of the backstory. This is in North Carolina. They were released. A judge ordered them released yesterday. 30 years. The one guy, 30 years on death row, McCollum. The other guy, Leon Brown, also convicted of murder, but he was not on death row. He was sentenced to life, I think, without parole. And as everybody involved in this case knew, both of these men were seriously mentally challenged, and the authorities lied to them. It turns out that they were told in the initial interrogation, "Hey, boys, all you have to do now, all you good Negroes have to do here is just go ahead and say that you did it, and you can walk out of here free." Really? Yes, sir. That's right. Come on, Leon, what you say? Lee, what you say? Come on, boy. But we didn't do it. Now, come on now. Come on now. Be a good Negro. You know we got you. We got you. But I tell you what, all you have to do is just say you did it, and we'll let you go free. Okay, we did it. Wham! Now, that's kind of how it works in the South, certainly 30 years ago. Well, they were innocent from the get-go. And again, let me just make sure you understand. They were not guilty on some technicality. They were innocent. They never committed the crime for which they gave 30 years of their lives. Or they didn't give. They had it stolen from them. They were in, I think, their early 20s when they were sent to prison. Now they're in their 50s. Think about that for a second, huh? Family died. Parents moved on. Or friends moved on. People died. And now the great state of Virginia has released them. Now, the same day that the Republican House Speaker in North Carolina, a pig named Tom Tillis, faced off against Democratic incumbent Kay Hagan in this first debate for her hotly contested U.S. Senate seat. See, this filthy pig, Tom Tillis, he wants to be the next senator. Get rid of Kay Hagan. Get rid of the Democrat. On that same day, the two men were freed from North Carolina prison after all that time they spent for a crime they didn't commit. They're now middle-aged. They were teenagers, wrongfully accused of raping and murdering a child. Anyway, Think Progress asked North Carolina Republican House Speaker Tom Tillis if anything needs to change in the criminal justice system in North Carolina in light of this entire case. So you know what this rat bastard said? "I feel very, very sorry for them, and I'm glad to know that they're out. At least the process worked. It just took too long." The process worked? See, this is how you identify a Republican, a right-winger, a neo-fascist with a statement like that. 30 years on death row, and this son of a bitch said, "Well, at least the process worked. It just took too long. Damn." But according to Think Progress, civil and legal rights advocates, including Vanetta Alston at the Center for Death Penalty Litigation, They have long argued that the so-called process didn't work at all for Brown and McCollum. And how many other people? Miss Alston told Think Progress, quote, "At every juncture, the system failed Henry and Leon. They were coerced into giving false confessions. These two boys could hardly read. They were intellectually disabled. They were manipulated and threatened and only signed the statements because law enforcement told them if they did, they could go home." The two brothers, according to Think Progress, were interrogated for hours with no attorney present in order to get those confessions, which they both later tried to recant. But now, boys, you were good Negroes. Don't go back on it now. Don't become an uppity Negro and start to tell me that you really didn't kill her, that you really didn't make your confession. No, that's no, I know what kind of language I'm using. That's what's used. I lived in North Carolina. Twice it. There was never any physical evidence against them. And McCollum's defense team demanded DNA testing 10 years ago when it became available. And some results came back 9 years ago showing the cigarette butt found at the scene of the crime did not match McCollum, but the DNA. Eventually, they realized it was tied to a convicted murderer named Roscoe Artis. But back to Vernetta Alston, she said, quote, "Law enforcement was in a rush to get a conviction, and during the investigation, they missed the real killer who was right under their nose. And because of their haphazard and negligent investigation, he went on to kill again." Now, last night, this speaker thug, Tom Tillis, called for these two innocent men to be given some sort of financial assistance in order to get this, reintegrate into society. Financial assistance? Are you kidding me? 30 years of torture? 30 years of torture. Death row is you're in solitary. 30 years of torture. What's that worth? Is that worth $1 million a year? 10 million? What's that worth? Now, he said, why, he told Think Progress, you can never repay someone for 30 years of incarceration for being wrongly accused, but we can take steps to make right by those two gentlemen. Gentlemen? Gentlemen, the ones the state of North Carolina referred to as boys and be good Negroes? Gentlemen now. Oh, really? However, here's the catch. In North Carolina, there's no mechanism in place to pay them a goddamn dime. Nothing. Only if the Republican governor, that Pat McCrory freak, the one who has destroyed North Carolina, only if he grants them what is called an official pardon of innocence can they seek compensation. And it will take, obviously, an act of the North Carolina legislature to award them, not reward, award them for all those years in prison. And Miss Alston of the Center for Death Penalty Litigation, she says that she thinks these two men will pursue that course, and she hopes that Governor Pat McCrory will not make it more difficult than it has to be. Now, Pat McCrory, all he has to do, of course, is delay it long enough for one of these men to get sick and maybe die, save the state a lot of money. Now, additionally, this Tillis freak, the one that said the system worked, get this, his own campaign materials tout his leading role in, quote, passing a bill to end the de facto moratorium on the death penalty in North Carolina. Now, he refers to his vote to repeal the Racial Justice Act. That was a law that allowed death row inmates to challenge their sentences and reduce them to life in prison if they could prove racial bias in their cases. But Mr. Tillis here, who wants to be the next senator? No, let's get rid of that. That's a de facto moratorium on the death penalty, and goddamn it, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian, and I believe kill these sons of bitches. That's guilty? Not guilty? They had their trial.